This is Papa Smurf. You're listening to Our Lifestyle, the podcast, with ODB and the Mayor.
Yo, it's ODB, and I want to thank our title sponsor, Custom Car Show Productions, for the continued support. Please join us next year at Scrapin' the Coast. Go to scrapinthecoast.com for more information. The 21st annual event is going to be held June 23rd through the 25th in Biloxi, Mississippi, at the famed Coliseum. Again, scrapinthecoast.com for more information. We'll be out there. We love what the team is doing with this amazing show. They also have their next event under the Custom Car Show Production umbrella, along with Keg Media, which is going to be Orange Beach Invasion. You can go to orangebeachinvasion.com, and of course you'll see that the all vehicle registrations do require approval. It's March 24th to the 26th of 2023, arguably the best venue in the country for a car and truck show. Come on out, Orange Beach Invasion, March 24th through the 26th. Let's jump into this episode. Yo, it's ODB from OLP. This is episode 319 of the podcast. We appreciate everyone that continues to come back and rock with us every week. This episode, we're going to talk kind of our annual Christmas special. So we'll talk about Christmas, talk about some of the good old days, and I will bake in a short segment on the Chronic 30th anniversary. If you follow us in social media, you know that yesterday was the 30th anniversary, so 12/15 of 9 Deuce. So back in 1992, the Chronic, the first album on Death Row Records, dropped. You know, typically, I think this might make 3 out of 4 years. I've kind of done an annual episode talking about the Chronic, so we'll hit more on that later. I do want to thank our last couple of guests for coming on. Charles Wickman, a lot of great feedback. I've heard people loud and clear, hey, get him back on. I know he's got more notes, more stories. The guy was in a lot of the right places at the right time, but he's just a true enthusiast. So, Charles, again, thanks for coming on. Steve Butts as well, previous guest. We had a 1-2 punch there. A lot of great stories, a lot of great people. So thanks, guys, for coming on. But this episode, we are planning to talk Christmas, so I'll talk, a couple things. We're going to link up with a real solid guest, Jeff Kelly. So he's just an awesome listener and just a big supporter. And we'll talk Christmas, a little bit of a Christmas story tie-in, which I think is going to be cool. So, he had exchanged some comments with me, and I was like, yo, we got to get you on. And again, this is going to be our Christmas special. Kind of gives us a couple weeks before the actual, about a week and a half before the actual Christmas holiday. And, not everyone's able to keep up with these every single week. So possibly this will allow people to kind of get caught up. And the next 2 episodes, we do have kind of earmarked for content already. As we fishtail into 2023, we're getting excited, but we're going to keep it legal, right? Now, I do want to thank Hammered Weekend Wear for sponsoring the episode overview. Right now, they're going through their open enrollment, so if you want to get in on the 2023 prices and obtain every single one of their shirts, you can do so. Head over to HAMMERD, weekendwear.com. That's hammered with a D, weekendwear.com. I know the date is starting to near that for the cutoff for deliveries for Christmas, so please, if you can, visit Hammered Weekend Wear, show them some love, good people. So, next up, let's talk Christmas. So, this episode will be a little bit different. Again, if you're new to our podcast, certainly hope that you go back and listen to other episodes. Being that we've been around for 7.5 years, we're very regimented on what we do and the content. But this week, it'll be a little bit loose because we are doing our annual Christmas special. And I would, as we talk Christmas, I would just ask yourself, what's the meaning of Christmas to you? As a child, my parents just did the best they could for us, and it was always great. My parents were 2 kind of blue-collar, good kinfolk, mom waitress and dad working for the phone company, and the money that they were able to just kind of put away and get the toys for us and things like that really just meant the world to us. They certainly had us convinced Santa was crawling down the chimney or through the window. I remember just kind of opening the door as a kid and seeing the G.I. Joes, the freestyle bike. My first couple bikes were hand-me-downs. The go-kart that I think was technically a hand-me-down, but it looked brand new to us. They just always did so much for us, and it brings me back to, what is the real meaning of Christmas to you? Many believe different things, so we'll kind of leave that where it is, but I would think that we would all agree that Christmas is for the kids, and not just for the kids, it's for the family as well. And of course, it's not just for the family and the kids, it also is for friends. So this holiday season, I'd encourage you guys, reach out to maybe someone you haven't spoken with in a while, maybe someone you haven't even seen eye to eye with for whatever reason. Put the past behind you, move on to greener pastures. Let the person know that you appreciate them, right? I know sometimes friendships, kind of get broken over the course of time, or maybe people misunderstood something and things like that. And I would just encourage you, what I'm trying to do is, just reach out to people, maybe someone you haven't talked to in a while. Say, what up? I'm checking in on you. I've got some really good friends that will certainly check in on me and say, hey, man, it's a real homie check-in. Just want to see how you're doing, what's up, anything on your mind. And that's always a good feeling when you got friends that do that. So again, having that outreach to your friends and people that mean a lot to you, maybe it's even family or coworkers, certainly do that. I'll summarize and say this, that, in my own life, as we start to move into 2023 and with New Year's resolutions, and you kind of tie that into, the Christmas holiday season, I'm doing the best I can not to get caught up in any kind of BS or gossip talk and things like that. And although I feel like I put, this into motion a few years ago, I think I'm just really realizing it now that it's just so much, better for me, not to be caught up in some of the stuff that really doesn't pertain to me. The stuff where, other guys out there in the truck scene, they don't see eye to eye, or this guy doesn't like this guy and whatever. That's irrelevant to me. That's not my problem. So, I look at it and say this, if somebody's like, yo, man, check this out, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, man, I don't even want to hear it. They're like, really? No, man, let me tell you this. I'm like, nah, don't really want to hear it. And when, people are like, hey, let me show you this screenshot, man, you won't believe this. And hey, I'm focused on me. I'm focused on positivity. And even if maybe there's someone that over the course of time I didn't see eye to eye with, and someone's like, yeah, you believe this, this guy, this and that. You know what I say? Hey, I've seen a lot of good that the person's done, And I know Ice-T will often tweet things like this. The people will say the one bad thing maybe that's happened, or, something that's, that transpired, versus the 100 good things that you've done. And I don't want to be that person of going, yo, you believe this guy, man, this one time he did this and he probably didn't even know what he was doing, but he did it and it was kind of messed up. Dude, that's not my place. So again, I'm feeling better about where I'm at in 2022 as I fishtail into 2023. The other thing I would encourage you to do is, as you start to think about, some of you are big on the New Year's resolutions, stop for a minute and do your best to make goals that are attainable, okay? In my opinion, and I've read about this, don't just say, hey, cold turkey, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, because the whole cold turkey thing doesn't work for all of us, okay? Some of you, absolutely. I've done some things in my life where I'm like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to stop drinking soda. And it was like, boom. For the most part, haven't drank soda, maybe a rum and Coke, over the course of time. But a couple things in life I have been able to manage. Cold turkey, boom, done, not going to do it again. One of those things, believe it or not, you guys probably won't believe me, in the late 90s, every time I ate at Taco Bell, my stomach hurt. And I said I will never eat at Taco Bell again, and motherfuckers probably didn't believe me. And I'm not making this up. It's probably been, I don't remember the exact year, 98, 99 for sure. Dude, 20 plus years have not eaten or drank anything at Taco Bell. Just because that's what I do, right? But I mean this with all seriousness. Make goals that are attainable. Don't just be like, yo, I'm going to quit smoking, or I'm not going to use, one credit card, or I'm not going to do this. Because, when you do those things and you make those goals that maybe aren't easily attainable, you kind of fall off the ship, and then you go, you know what? Screw it. I'm not worried about that anyways. Make these goals, stair step them, And I think as you do that and you get into 2023, you're going to find it's a great thing. I'm doing some of those things myself, even before the New Year's resolution, trying to cut back on this and trying to do this more. So I say all that. Let me bring it back to what is the meaning of Christmas. And I would say this, that's up to you, my friends. But like Biggie said, spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. And you can replace Brooklyn with anything. Again, I think there's a lot of good people out there, especially in our truck scene. And I'm focusing on the positive aspect of it. Not everybody's perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. And, there's always going to be some beefs out there. There's always going to be some people that may not see eye to eye. I'm not associating myself with that stuff. I'm staying positive. I'm doing the podcast. I'm keeping the pedal stopped. Even when Miggity Mike the mayor and Shannon, Mrs. Mayor, are out gallivanting. But for good reason, it is Shannon's born day today, the 13th. So happy born day, Shannon. Big ups, Miggity Mike. You guys have a good time. But I say all that. Christmas is a great time of year. I would encourage you guys to spend time with your friends and family. I'm trying to put down my phone a little bit more, maybe schedule a post here and there, and not be so consumed with what's in this little screen on my pocket, but just getting out there and living. This week I had a chance to go to Busch Gardens for the Christmas time with the family, and it was cool. None of us were on our phones. I think I checked a couple quick things, but for the most part, weren't on our phones. We also just saw all kinds of people out there having a good time, taking selfies. People going, "Hey, I could take that photo for you." Oh, cool! Merry Christmas, thank you. It's just the great part of life. The aspect that I really love, and I want to get back to that. And I'm gonna stop focusing on bullshit and beef. And when people bring that shit my way, I say FOH, and you guys know what that means. F out of here. You know what I'm saying? I don't want that stuff in my realm. I'm gonna keep it positive and keep pushing forward. So that's the Christmas talk, believe it or not, for this week. And it is brought to you by the fine folks at Lone Star Throwdown. Visit LoneStarThrowdown.com to find out more information. Now, here's the thing. Although we're going to be in Conroe for the biggest, baddest truck show in the galaxy, about 72 days away from the time of this recording, just know that you can still get in the front gates. It's only $20 for a spectator band. And guess what? That's a weekend pass for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., LoneStarThrowdown.com. Listen, come out. They've got indoor spots. They've got outdoor. You might have to bundle up. You just never know what the weather's going to be. But I tell you what, we always have an amazing time there in Conroe, Texas. We hope to see you guys out there. Now, I mentioned Jeff Kelly. We are going to link up with him just in a little while. We're going to talk more Christmas with him. But I wanted to bring this up next. Think about this. What were some of your favorite toys growing up? This month, I think you're going to start seeing me on social media, at least the week leading up to Christmas. I'm going to go back to doing what I've done in the past. Other 80s pages have been doing this as well. But I'm going to post some nostalgic stuff, whether it be old Toys R Us ads, maybe some old videos for commercials for toys that were highly sought after, or things that bring back our childhood memories. And for me, G.I. Joe was the stuff, and I love that now that some of the anniversaries, I think the 40th anniversary was the last one, maybe this year, we're starting to see some of the stuff kind of reproduced, but there's nothing like the originals. I watch a lot of YouTube channels. I guess I follow a lot of YouTube channels. I haven't had as much time lately to watch the stuff, but these guys that collect, and they've got every toy in every box, never opened, and every guy and every package. Just insane to me, but growing up, G.I. Joes were my main go-to. When my parents went to Walmart, I could easily convince them to spend the $2.78, $3, maybe $4, whatever it was. It was very cheap, very cost-effective to go say, "Yo, Mom Duke, yo, Pops, can I please get a new G.I. Joe?" So that was my jam for years. I had a good amount of the vehicles. I loved He-Man as well. I remember my aunt buying me the Castle of Grayskull, which they recently re-released that stuff. And I tell you what, if you guys love the 80s and 90s as much as I do, you have to appreciate, even if you're not a collector, even if you go, I'm not going to buy the stuff, or I got no room for it, or whatever the deal is. To me, I didn't buy the Castle of Grayskull. I kind of wanted to, but I looked at it and said, man, that brings back a lot of memories, 83, 84, 85, whatever it was, getting that stuff. And again, going back to my mom and pops, rest in peace to my dad, dude, they gave us the best childhood, and although we didn't have the most money, we didn't even know. We just had fun. We lived on a lake. We had a huge yard. We just did the dang thing, and G.I. Joes were my jam. Now, bikes were also a big thing in the 80s, and that's why I love bikes so much. Shout out to Sean from Rad BMX Builds. I love what he's doing in his social media. I think he's at 100,000 followers now. He also is out there on YouTube giving people tips for how not to get scammed with these bike deals. But my first two bikes were hand-me-downs. I had a Huffy that weighed like 1,000 pounds. It felt like we used to jump it with this little ramp that we had. My dad brought home a Mongoose, which again was a hand-me-down. I loved it. Loved the movie Rad. All that great stuff. And then eventually I got a freestyle bike, which I can't find any photos of. My parents did take a lot of photos, and I can't find a photo of. I know one exists. I remember seeing it as a kid, but there's a photo somewhere of a dark blue bike with black mags. I don't remember what kind of bike it was, but I got to find that photo. But those were some of the things I loved growing up. And then, of course, you got to the mid to the late 80s, and the Nintendo Entertainment System really gained steam. That was one thing I talked my parents into getting maybe around 4th grade, is what I remember. I do remember going and buying it. I still remember opening the box. I remember going, how do we hook this up? And I was like, yo, we had that little coax that you screwed into the back of the TV, and it had that little RF deal, and you had to like flip the little thing one way or the other, and it like flipped the signal from our cable to, I guess, the little US, or not USB, but the RCAs. And boom, that's what we had. The funniest thing was we got the Nintendo, we had Duck Hunt, we had Mario Brothers, but my parents were not the parents that would buy us games. You know, those games were, I'd go to Walmart and look in that Nintendo display case, $39.99. And I think over the course of time, they maybe bought like 2 games. They bought Excite Bike, I think, for one of my birthdays. They bought Skater Die. I convinced them, I think, to buy the original Skater Die and maybe Rad Racer. But all the other stuff was always trading and borrowing, okay? That was the stuff back then. You trade them, you borrow them, you switch them back. Love some RC Pro-Am, all that good stuff. But I'll tell you this, I love looking back at the old Toys R Us ads. Also, when I was a kid, we'd get the JCPenney ads, and I'd look at all the G.I. Joe stuff. So I tell you, it's crazy to see what people collect. People have this stuff. They have the photos of it. And to me, although I can't collect all this stuff now, you know, I'm on to bigger, better things, mini trucks, Lincolns, maybe some rap CDs and records. It is still cool to really look back at the nostalgia. And one of my favorite pages recently, I want to give them a shout out, is Nothing to Do with Trucks. It's a lot of 80s stuff. And if you go on Instagram and type in VHS, it's VHS_toys, 60,000 followers, lots of cool stuff. And I tell you what, like VHS tapes, all that stuff brings me right back. And people are collecting this stuff that we were throwing away, literally going, who wants VHS? DVDs are out now, but it's all back. You know, it's all back. It's awesome. I need to find me a good VHS player. I mean, Mike's laughing. I'm trying to collect all this stuff. I got cassettes here, VHS. I need a damn Betamax player. I got some laser discs, Mike, too. He doesn't even know what those things are. But think about this. What are some of your favorite toys growing up? What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a post on Facebook in our Airhead Nation group and try to get you guys to chime in there. What were some of the things that you just had to have? You know, the big wheels were huge. Slip and slides were all the rage when I was a kid, but really the G.I. Joes, that was my main thing. And I know many of you were big Transformer heads. I know those things were huge. My neighbor was. I didn't really ever have many Transformers, but I know Transformers are more than meets the eye, and I don't think Mike knows that. You know what I'm saying? Favorite toys growing up. This segment is brought to you by Joey at Get Decked. If you want to put a photo or artwork on a skate deck, hit up Joey Dilworth. If you go on Instagram, type in Get Decked, you'll see Get Decked VA. That's Joey Dilworth. He's also on Facebook. Send him a direct message. He also has launched his own merchandise, but certainly all of the skate decks that we've gotten from him have come under him putting those together in conjunction with the artwork from Graphic Disorder. Now, I do want to let you guys know the skate decks are slated to ship out early this coming week. There was a mix-up in the shipping. We apologize, and Mike is going to get those out hopefully early this coming week. I think he said on Monday. I know it's cutting it close for Christmas, and we apologize, but I did want to let you guys know that. Okay, since Jeff is going to come on a little bit later, I want to talk maybe some trivia with Jeff. I want to talk more Christmas stuff as well, but I do want to cover some of the scene updates. So here's a few things that I want to really reinforce. So I did notice the other day that the gentleman passed away that started Rockford Fosgate. And the OG Magnum had shared this. I had not seen it. Again, I know I'm not on social media maybe as much as some of you guys are, so I kind of had not seen that. But OG Magnum, who we've had on before, yes, you can go back or Google that episode and find it. He reposted it from Bangin' Bros, and it was saddened to hear of the passing yesterday of a true car audio legend, Jim Fosgate. He was a self-taught son of a television and radio repairman. Respects Jim invented the first car amplifier in 1973 and founded Fosgate Electronics, now called Rockford Fosgate. Another cool fact is in 2003, Jim Fosgate won an Emmy Award for the development of surround sound for television. You can't ignore the contributions of Mr. Fosgate blessed our world with car audio, and that was OG Magnum. Again, a repost from Bangin' Bros, which they have 148,000 followers. So rest in peace. That was a big update in our scene. The next big one, which is breaking news, is congratulations to Pascal, a great guy. I last slapped hands with him probably at Lone Star Throwdown. And always give him his praise. I do. I firmly believe in that. And Pascal, he goes by, of course, the Instagram username Dog8, my username, just how it sounds. He did sell the Stranger Ford Ranger to Brett Hunsaker. So Brett, if I remember correctly, is Relaxed702 on Instagram. He also had a bagged, or still might have, a bagged Tesla. But what I thought was pretty cool was he says, "That's right, I can't believe it myself. Christmas came early for me. Pascal was gracious enough to let me acquire this iconic truck. When I first started to look for a mini truck, I had a very small list. Then I showed my wife this truck, and she said, when he told her it might be available, she said she liked it the best. That gave me the green light for a go." And really just a truly iconic truck. I think it deserves more credit than it's even gotten. And that's saying a lot because it has gotten a lot of great praise, but I mean that with all respect. I know this truck really should have been, in my opinion, on the cover of Mini Truckin', but I think the time didn't align correctly with the magazine going out of business, unfortunately. So that was a very unfortunate thing, but I know Slammed Mag featured it. So those are the photos that Brett had shared. And also, the other key thing is it was on the cover of the West Coast Influence. And if you guys didn't know, Radar produced a mini truck film, which you can go to minitruckfilm.com and buy the copy of the Blu-ray or DVD. So check it out. And congratulations to both the seller and the buyer. An amazing truck, one of the most iconic, and possibly, as everybody always uses the emoji, like I do for Tony Hawk, we use the GOAT emoji. And you guys know what that stands for, right? It's not the trivia question, but GOAT stands for greatest of all time. And really, if you look it up, LL Cool J coined that phrase. He named one of his albums that earlier in his career. So shout out to LL, and shout out to Pascal again for selling just an amazing truck. Big ups to, again, the buyer and the seller. So a couple other things that I wanted to cover. I did see the big homie Joel Cruikshank. He says not too much to say other than it was an awesome weekend. Of course, they were at the grand finale. His truck managed to bring home a couple of awards, top 3 minis, best graphics, and his truck, I think he said he's still got even more work to do, but man, I tell you what, Joel, it looks fantastic. I'm super stoked for you. And I was a little skeptical in the beginning because you remember I said, yo, you're tearing apart this super nice truck. What are you doing, man? Don't do it. You know, here I am trying to kind of get in your ear, so to speak, and you come back with a 1-2 punch and you lay it down and you're just doing a fantastic job. So shout out to my brother across the bay here. Can't wait to link up. Can't wait to see it in person we got to do a feature for OLP YouTube page. Just saying, you know what I'm saying? And the last update that I wanted to mention was Thad Cunningham. Just a great guy, always supporting the scene. You talk about staying on the rise. He says getting some shine on the new garage floor. And, dude, that doesn't look like a garage. That looks like a palace, dude. I'm super stoked. We got to come up, dude, and just have a blowout up there. We'll bring Hank into town, kind of stroll in. Just literally, he'll get the party cranked. But in all seriousness, man, we got a lot to look forward to, Thad. I can't wait to see more photos, and I'll tell you what, that floor just literally looks like a museum. I can't wait to see what you come up with a name for this place if you haven't already. Super sick, dude. Come on, just invite Hank and I up one weekend. We'll get a little crazy up there. Okay, the scene updates brought to you by Garage Gear Clothing. Visit garagegearclothing.com. Place an order. The holidays are upon us. They have merchandise for children, for the ladies, and of course they have plenty for the guys or ladies. Sport trucks, mini trucks, full sizes, muscle cars. GarageGearClothing.com has it all. Hit them up. They do have free shipping, I think, on orders over $100 now. GarageGearClothing.com. Okay, the podcast update. So this one's short and sweet. And again, I said this earlier, the decks were inadvertently sent to the incorrect address. We do have them, and Mike is going to get those shipped out. I believe it's early this week. So I know it's going to cut it close for Christmas, but I just want to say thank you guys. We really appreciate all the support. We will have some that are not sold. If they're not sold by the time Eastbound Get Down comes around, we'll be out, of course, next month, January, and we'll be slinging merch in the Daytona area, the greater Daytona area at Destination Daytona. So if you haven't got a skate deck yet and you want to get one, you can buy them online. We do ship those. The shipping's not cheap, so we appreciate everybody that has ordered those. It's more cost-effective if you buy more than one. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But, again, you can link up with us at Eastbound Get Down, also known in my mind as EBGD, Eastbound Get Down, 2023, of course, next January. The podcast updates is brought to you by Graphics Mafia. If you need stickers, or maybe you're going into this new year and you're like, yo, I had some stickers I need to re-up, but I don't know who to go to Graphics Mafia, GRAPHIX Mafia.com. My wife even hit up Buddy the other day and said, yo, Buddy, I need some stickers. I want to get some made for my girlfriends, little Christmas gift, kind of gag type deal. Can you do 1, 2, 3? And he said, yo, what you need, Mrs. ODB. And he laid them down for her, and he shipped them out already. So he's a good dude. I think he even accepts the Cash App. And I think it went down in the DM. The whole thing did, including the Cash App transaction. But hit up graphics, GRAPHIX Mafia.com. Now, before we talk to Jeff, and we do a little bit of trivia with Jeff as well, we'll talk more Christmas, I do want to just give a couple of the Airhead Nation updates. So here's a few that I have. I want to give a huge shout-out to Custom Car Show Productions and someone that is literally at the helm there with her mom, Tammy, Lauren Miller. So their newborn is here. Baby Brentley is a week old and officially 5 pounds, 6 ounces. So I know your dad's looking down, Mr. Greg Miller, the man, the myth, the legend, and he's so proud of you guys. So congratulations. My only advice to you is just know after the first 8 weeks, it does get a lot easier, okay? Depends on how much the baby cries at night, but just know it does get easier. And I tell you what, it does fly by in the blink of an eye. Hang in there, Lauren. Love what you guys have going on in your lives. The big homie, Jason Hardwood, he says, please keep my Jess in your thoughts and prayers. She's in an ambulance headed to the burn center in Augusta, Georgia. Love you, baby doll. I'm headed that way. That was on the 9th. I think he has posted a couple of updates here, and I believe she's okay from my understanding. And I just don't have an update, so just keep them. These guys, they're always at shows. They're always looking out for people. They're always giving as much as they can, especially at Mini Nats. So I hope she's going to be okay. Speaking of Garage Gear Clothing, really Crystal Ford's holding it down over there. And I know Lonnie said, happy anniversary, babe. I couldn't imagine doing life without you. And they're just such a great couple. Ian, we got Johnny Garage Johnson. He says, today I've been on this planet for 52 years, but He says, we celebrated 26 years of marriage this year. From this point on, I've been married to his wife, Corey Johnson, more years than he wasn't. So I love the numbers. I love how you broke it down there. It's pretty crazy to think about that. And I recently heard in a rap song, it was like talking about today's the youngest you'll ever be. And I kind of thought about that for a minute. I was like, well, you could spin it and go, well, no, I was younger yesterday. But if you think about your life, where you're at right now, you'll never be any younger than you are right this moment. So get out there, like I always say, live life, do what you love. You know what I'm saying? Now, speaking of the Airhead Nation updates, this is what we're going to start calling our long distance dedication. And this came from a big supporter of OLP. He says, I'm writing you about a special lady I think about every day. You see, a little over 30 years ago, I got up the courage to ask her to a school banquet our senior year of high school. We went on a date, and I can't remember how it came up. Maybe it was my high school ride that was a slammed Nissan hardbody. But the conversation ended up her telling me she had copies of mini Truckin magazines and had wanted her dad's Square S10. That night, I jokingly asked her to marry me. We were class of 91 and began a love affair the next year that ended up with us getting married December 19th of 1992. Now, you know he was rocking out to the Chronic. I know he was. We decided early on it was important to tell each other, I love you. But was even more important to show it. This year, we celebrated 30 years marriage together and showing our love to each other. Casey Kasem, he means ODB, would please play More Than Words by Extreme. Tim and Dawn, here's your long distance dedication. So that's a little bit of fun, right? And Tim baked in mini Truckin because Diggity Dawn, she was rocking out with the mini Truckin magazines, okay? And we got to find out if that was the truth or if she just knew how to ring them in. You know what I'm saying? So, good catch, y'all. Love it. And thanks for being our first long-distance dedication. Airhead Nation updates brought to you by our family at CS Metalworks. You can go to cs-metalworks.com and find more information, see some of their work. They're also on Instagram at CS Metalworks. If you need AccuAir, maybe you need some universal air, hit up Chris Burns. Again, it's C_S_Metalworks all together. And hit them up. Let them know what you need. Let them know that ODB sent you. So Jeff, we're going to call him shortly. And again, Jeff is a big supporter of the podcast. He's also the guy that gave me the Thriller cassette tape, which I needed for the collection, so I can't thank him enough. We're going to call him shortly. Talk a little bit more Christmas stuff. He's also got a cool story that ties into a Christmas Story movie, which is pretty cool, so we'll talk to him shortly. But before that, we're talking Christmas on this episode. We're also talking The Chronic, and if you're a day one listener, on the 16th, you more than likely saw that I had posted the day before. On the 15th, before I say the anniversary, it's also Miggity Mike the Mayor's born day. So if you missed it on Thursday, shoot him a text, shoot him a message, however you get the word to him, or go on his Facebook and post something. Wish Miggity Mike the Mayor a happy born day. I know he's literally gallivanting away another weekend, which, I guess you could arguably say your born day weekend. You can gallivant as much as you want, but of course Mike and Shannon rarely ever home on the weekends because they're always out doing stuff. They are out gallivanting this weekend. I don't know where to, but give them a huge shout out. Shannon's born day was on Tuesday. Miggity Mike's is on the Chronic anniversary, 12/15, and give him a huge shout out. Now, I was going to do a whole episode. I wasn't able to link up with the guy that helped work on the Chronic and so many other albums. We seemingly were never able to record at the same time, but he has worked behind the scenes in the music industry a long time, so I do hope to get him on sometime. Also, I'd like to get the Daniel Jordan on, the guy that took the photos of Dre. I did talk to him back in September on the phone, and that'll kind of tie into this quicker update that I'll provide. But if you guys know, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, I've done some episodes where it's like the whole episode's the Chronic. I think I did one, maybe possibly for the 25th. I remember doing one, the Chronic Relit, and I would just cover things that maybe were lesser known facts or the top 10 things you may not know about the album. But here's what I want to cover on this episode. So this is the 30th anniversary. So back in 1992, Death Row Records basically kicks off their existence to a certain extent with the launch of the Chronic. That's the first album that drops on their label. Now, of course, some of you remember, and it's unfortunate the 187 track isn't available to stream. It hasn't been for a long time. I think Solar owns the rights to that, and it fell on the Deep Cover soundtrack. That track came out, I think it was April of 92, and you could argue and say, hey, that kind of kicked it off. Of course, that was Dre, that was, introducing Snoop to the world, and absolutely, there's no denying that. But you got to remember, that also is not on Death Row Records technically, although you can find the song basically not streaming 100%. Not only has all the Death Row stuff been pulled down since earlier this year when Snoop was BODR back on Death Row, he announced that. But 187 has never been able, it's never been available to stream as far as I know. I've never found it, and I use both Spotify and Apple Music. Those are the big ones. I know there's a couple others out there. Maybe it's out there on the streaming service that Jay-Z was kind of tied into. I don't know. But for the most part, let's just say, hey, it's not available to stream. So when the Chronic comes out, it basically comes out less than a month after Nothing But a G Thing comes out. So November 92, I didn't really post about this. I mean, I sometimes, in some years I'll post a bunch. Time goes by, and then I'm like, I don't want to post this year. But on, I really should have, but on 11/19/92, so 11/19/1992, right? If you break down the calendar, it's kind of a cool date. Death Row Records drops Nothing But a G Thing, right? So many of us grew up seeing that video over and over on MTV, hearing it, blasting it out the cassette players, out of the speakers with the CD, whatever you had. That song is really like an all-time classic. So really, you could argue and say, well, Death Row Records kind of kicks off on 11/19/1992, fourth quarter. That was always important for the record industries to launch their bigger albums then. A lot of movies come out around that time. It's a time period where people were spending money. They're going to the movies. They used to a lot. They would buy, go to the mall. They're buying gifts. They're spending money, bottom line. But basically, the track comes out November 19, 1992. Now, I did post early in November this year. I have, based upon what they call the clapper board. So in the movie industry, they've got those little boards, and they go, all right, quiet on set, all right, boom, right, action. And that clapper board typically is going to have, what scene it is, and that's how they would kind of stitch together things. Back in the day, they'd say, okay, well, this is the next piece we need and whatnot as far as film. And I did post, they recorded the video the first week in November. So the one behind the scenes screenshot that I had was basically, kind of confirming, I think it was like November 7th, right? So the way things worked back then is, things were, pretty much like boom, boom, boom. The song would have been recorded or would have been released, coming up. They would have, recorded the video and submitted that to MTV and these different, outlets, if you will. And so basically November kicks off, and then December on 12/15/1992, the album drops. And again, if you go back or you're interested in this album at all, or you want to hear more facts, go back and listen to those other episodes. In fact, on our YouTube channel, I've cleaned it up a lot, and I have a playlist out there that says Death Row Tie-In. So anything that has ever been published that has still stood out there on YouTube, you can go out there. Any of the videos I make that tie in the Death Row Records, I will dump or basically tie those videos to that playlist. So any of the episodes that are still out there, I think some of them would get pulled down if I use copyrighted music. That's why I kind of stopped that. But for the most part, you'll see a few out there. If you're on Podbean, the other trick is you can go to OLP and then you can search the episode. So you can type in like Chronic, for instance, and it should pull up through Podbean app any of the episodes where I mentioned the Chronic, like in the title as an example. But basically, I'm not going to rehash all of that stuff. You guys know I love this album. The few things that I was going to cover that are that were newer revelations to me, or things that we figured out or I figured out. Number one, I talked about not too long ago when I went out to California. The quick summary of that was I got a chance to talk to Daniel Jordan. I met Michael Gilbert Lopez, and we had him on the podcast. He's a photographer. I met him through YouTube because I commented on his video because he's friends with Daniel Jordan that took the photos of Dre. It was always intriguing to me because there was this other photographer that had claimed that his shots were used for the cover of the Chronic, and I was like, well, that doesn't seem right, but whatever. So Michael was cool enough when I commented to actually go and ask his friend Daniel to say, hey, there's this guy on YouTube, he's a big fan of this album. He was curious, do you recall where you took those photos? And of course, Daniel Jordan goes, yo, I remember, because I was basically living at this facility. I don't know, some sort of like an apartment type thing, maybe for creators. I don't really know the exact behind the scenes, but he goes, I remember exactly where I took the photos because I was living there. And at the time, I think they have like a studio inside. They take the photos on the indoors, the one obviously for the Chronic, and then they go outside to take the lowrider photo. So because of that YouTube video, and then because I comment, and Michael goes and talks to his friend Daniel, who was in that video talking about that shoot, basically that gave me the address to where the Chronic was shot. And then I spent a good amount of time. It wasn't just some quick find. I went on Google Maps, and you can go out on YouTube again, and you can. I talk about all this and the time that I spent, and I was able to line up based upon using the time machine feature, whatever you call it, on Google Maps, and kind of going back, maybe I think to like 2007. I could go back, was the furthest, but because they had built some high-rise deals, you weren't able to line it up in today's world. So by using Google Maps, I was able to go back and kind of line it all up. So I did all that, and I was like 99.999% sure I had it lined. And then the Thursday, Friday that I was in California, Daniel had called and left a voicemail on my phone when I was driving. And he goes, yo, it's Daniel Jordan trying to get a hold of Jason ODB. He had watched a couple of the YouTube videos. So he was like, yo, man, give me a call. So we exchanged a couple texts, and I called him later that afternoon or that evening time. And I had left that location earlier in the day. So it was ironic that although he had reached out, when he had given that tidbit of information on where the album was shot, I had basically done all the legwork and I had figured it out. And then what he did when I sent him one of the teaser photos, he goes, yep, you got it. That's exactly where the car was. So it kind of made me feel good that the work that I put in, if he would have came back and been like, yo, dude, you're like 3 streets off, I would have been like, damn, dude, let's call a timeout here. But in all seriousness, I got to thank Daniel and Michael for that connect. So that was kind of cool. If you think about pop culture the way it is, I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube where people are doing movie site locations, they're doing old album covers. I mean, that stuff has just, the allure of it has really, really grown. There's people that have figured out all kinds of stuff. And most of the time, it goes back to the photographer who took said photo. And as you'd imagine, as we all get older and, people get older and they're kind of, their minds, they might lose their memories and maybe they pass on at some point. Some of that stuff is kind of a lost deal. You'll never figure out some of it. But with good people like Daniel and with Michael, we were able to locate this one. So that was kind of, I think, the big thing, like a kind of a feather in the cap, so to speak, on, hey, this is a monumental album, kicks off Death Row. Nobody had really ever figured that out. I'm 100% sure on it. Daniel kind of indicated to me that, he had never been asked that. So I do think probably I was the first one to kind of figure it out. Of course, he knew where it was at, but he wasn't so much into the pop culture stuff. And I'm sure if somebody asked Dre, hey, man, remember back in late October, early November, 1992, where did you go to get those photos? I mean, imagine how much stuff they've been through in their life, and photo shoots and music videos and award shows. I mean, they're not going to remember. So again, I think it was kind of a cool thing. So that's one thing that we were able to figure out. And again, if you're hearing this for the first time and you want to find out more about that, go on our Lifestyle Podcast, aka OLP YouTube channel, subscribe, and then check out the playlist on there. Anything that's still there that hasn't been taken down that ties in the Death Row Records, you'll see that video. And I think I maybe did two. I did a video maybe post where I talked about how I found it and what I did to nail it down. And then I think I did a video when I was physically there. So I think there's two out there. So check them out. Now, in addition to that, I was privy to see some notes and some things from different executives. I mean, even like Steve Berman and some of these guys. For Eminem fans, you'll hear, you'll remember Steve Berman was on some of the skits. Some of these notes and whatnot were from like October '92 when they're getting ready to launch the album. And there wasn't a lot of revelation from it. I mean, there's some cool stuff. The big thing was the 187 track really was going to be on The Chronic, and I think some knew that. We probably assumed it. I mean, really, I thought it should have been, and it was basically pulled because more than likely the backlash of with Ice-T's song, with Body Count, and some of the things that were going on. It just was, with the riots and all that stuff. There was a lot of tension in the air, so to speak. So the 187 track is really a classic. I mean, the beat on it is one of the dopest beats, and I mean it's super sick. You'll hear people freestyle over it all the time and things like that. So that track again was on deep cover. It came out April 9, so 4/9/1992, and it was 187. Just boom, just a number. Now on the album they were going to call it 187 which was kind of a term, we're going to take them out, 187 them. That was what it was going to be called, in terms of the title on the song. And it does go on to appear in a couple of different things. I know there was like a promo CD, there was the vinyl, but if you own any of the Death Row, the best of, they towards the end of Suge's reign there, before the bankruptcy proceedings and things like that, we're talking like kind of early 2000s. Suge was kind of like, they were on this kind of cash grab, right? So they'd put out, the Tupac, new mix or whatever, these weird spellings, but it was Tupac and it would sell. Well, they do the same thing with some of these best ofs. There's one or two best ofs out there, and I think, even Best Buy would have the exclusive that would have like one extra track. Kind of collectible now, it's kind of hard. It's getting a little harder to find the stuff. You usually end up paying $20-$30 for one of those CDs, if it's something even from the 2000s, because they're kind of a little bit more rare, I guess. But you will see the 187 track will pop up on some of those. It was also, I think, on the 1 Million Strong, which was a 1995 hip-hop compilation. I remember when that thing came out. It was, I think, on Dr. Dre Chronicles Death Row Classics, so that was another thing that Death Row had put out, where it was like Dre's, best of type thing. And so it was listed around, it kind of was on a few of those things. Now, if you go on the internet and you type in, or more specific like YouTube, if you type in 187 remix, if you've never heard this, there is the Dr. Dre 187 deep cover remix. That's a pretty cool one to check out. And again, it was on the, I think the Death Row one was the singles collection. So, on the singles, a lot of times there'd be like a B-side, or there'd be a different 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different mixes of a track. So, a lot of times people would go out and buy like a Tupac single because maybe it had these other mixes of the song that you'd never get to hear. A lot of that stuff, if you don't have it on a tape or CD or vinyl, you never get to hear it. Some groups, like Naughty by Nature, have done a good job of going back in the record labels, taking all of those singles that have been launched over the years and putting them on streaming. So, you can go back to the OPP single on Spotify and go, oh yeah, here were the other mixes. Here's the instrumental. Here's the other stuff that you rarely kind of got to hear. Unfortunately, with Death Row Records, that's out the door right now until they announce whatever they're going to do, because when Snoop took over, for whatever reason, if they're trying to kind of figure stuff out, or, I mean, I've seen different takes on this, but the music has all been pulled. Now, you could argue and say, well, yo, ODB, Tupac's All Eyes on Me, that's out there too. Yeah, some of that stuff is because after Tupac's death Row, I don't understand the legal proceedings, if they just did this just to be nice, but they basically gave the rights of those albums to Tupac's estate. And I don't know if they just did that because they felt bad or what, because, I mean, you would think, hey, a cash cow when you think of All Eyes on Me and then Machiavelli, the 7-Day Theory. So, again, getting back to the point, the bottom line is, whether it's the 187 track or the Chronic, I mean, none of it's out there to stream, unfortunately. So the Chronic, in one of the new videos that I posted, I kind of talk about my collection on YouTube. And, I talk about the cassette, the CD, vinyl. Those were really the only platforms it was available on. And then later on down the road, ironically enough, April 20th, ironically 420, April 20 of 2020, it became available. The Chronic became available on streaming services. And that didn't last long because, again, what we've reinforced is it's on Death Row. And Death Row pulled all of the stuff, so you can't go out there and stream it. But there's an article on timeout.com. It talks about back in, let's see what it was here. Back in 2011, Dre won a legal case against his former label, Death Row Records, giving him control over future releases of the Chronic. So in 2015, the album became available via Apple Music, which I thought was iTunes at the time, but let's say Apple Music, which had bought Dre's company, Beats Electronics. You guys remember that? But stayed off iTunes and Spotify. So iTunes, Spotify, and Tidal did not have it, but Apple Music did. The other big streaming services, of course, did not. Now, the E1 distribution company had brokered a deal to make the album available all over at long last. So that was kind of cool, because at the time, E1 Entertainment owned, and I won't get into the whole bunny trail, but basically since the proceedings, the bankruptcy deal, Death Row has changed hands several times. Let's just leave it at that. And now Snoop and apparently other partners, backers, financial guys, I don't know. There's several people that apparently own, of course, Death Row, and really all they're doing right now is launching new merchandise, which is kind of getting annoying, but it is what it is. Now, again, when it became available on 420, it was available on 420 2020, and that was on all streaming services, so it was kind of cool. So I do recall buying it, I think, when it became available in 2015 through iTunes, just to kind of have that digital version that I bought through iTunes. But for the most part, it's been removed now. So, it's unfortunate, because the other thing with it not being available to stream, not that Dre needs money, but if you think about reels, like I want to be able to do a reel and pick Nothing But a G Thing, or, D's Nuts, or one of these awesome tracks, Let Me Ride, one of my favorite tracks of all time, but we can't because it's not available. Every once in a blue moon, if a song's like on a compilation, sometimes you can sneak a Snoop song from some weird compilation and you'll find it, but it's just not there. But again, after, I know some of you are going, well, hold on, All Eyes on Me, that was Death Row. After Tupac's untimely death, Death Row, and I don't know what the insight is on this, they basically gave the rights back to the Tupac album. So All Eyes on Me, and then Machiavelli, that eventually would come out. So we're not talking like right when he passed, but I'm sure months after, those rights were given back to the Tupac estate. So that's why you can go out on Spotify and you can stream Machiavelli, you can stream All Eyes on Me, and they recently re-released those on vinyl and things like that. But again, that's through the Tupac estate technically. And again, I don't know if they just did that as a nice gesture because they felt bad of Tupac's, passing, or if there was some legal behind the scene type stuff when someone passes. I don't know the answer to that. But bottom line is, I think that the main things I can kind of give you updates on this year is I was able to locate where the album cover was shot. Of course, that was taken inside. The quote lowrider photo taken outside with the Impala in Dre, that was taken right outside that same building. Daniel confirmed that he took it. He did also confirm that there was a whole nother concept that they had for the album. He shared a couple teasers. I'll probably have shared some of those now on the anniversary. I kind of want him to do it because he shared some teasers, and it's kind of his deal. So I don't want to steal his thunder. But hopefully some of that will come out even further. Maybe he'll launch some photos available to purchase, maybe some autograph deals. I don't know, but I tell you, seeing the stuff was cool. Kind of involves a straight jacket. M was in a straight jacket, and Hi, My Name Was. I know Eazy-E had that famous photo shoot with a straight jacket and things like that. But bottom line is, I think when you think about the Chronic, you think about lowriders, you think about early 90s. I think of, Ice Cube, Today Was a Good Day, all of that era, Easy before that, Cruising Down the Street on My 6-0. All of that stuff kind of came together, and the West Coast, really had that G-Funk sound emerging, but it also had the car culture, right? We would see in the different videos, remember in Gin and Juice, you've got, forget if it was an old Impala or whatever, where it looks like smoke's coming out of it, and, they're partying and that whole thing, and then the Murder Was the Case soundtrack comes out, and it's got an Impala on the cover and things like that. So, again, the car culture, the low riding, the G-Funk sound, all of that stuff really came together in the early 90s, and it's hard to believe if Death Row, if you look, let's say they launched November of 92, just a few years later, let's say 5 years later, so 92, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 years later, Tupac's dead, Dre left in March 96, he was gone, and the record label was kind of just, the wheels were falling off at that point, and they put out a few more things. There's some gems, absolutely, but I think basically you had about a 5-6 year run, because in 91 they technically formed and they start recording the Chronic and all that stuff. So bottom line is, you had about that 5-6 year run, and some people call it the greatest hip hop label of all time. That's for you guys to judge. We'll see. But anyways, that's all I got for the Chronic. I know that was a lot. The 30th anniversary, and this is presented this week by her friends at the West Coast Influence. If you're a mini trucker, check out minitruckfilm.com, especially if you want to hook up your significant other with a stocking stuffer. Minitruckfilm.com. There's a documentary-style film surrounding the mini truck scene, and that is called The West Coast Influence. They also have a couple die casts available. Hit up minitruckfilm.com and place your order today. All right, I think now we're going to call Jeff. We'll talk to him a little bit about some Christmas stuff. He's a good dude. I hope that you guys will rock with us through this, and I think I'm going to sneak in a trivia question with him. And shout out to AccuAir. If you're looking, as you go into the new year, to upgrade your suspension, air management in particular, hit up AccuAir.com. I was just on their website. They have all different price points. You could start low and build up, plug and play, or you could even pick up some merchandise. AccuAir.com. Big shout out to the big homies over there. With that being said, I know this kind of was an episode that's bounced back and forth a little bit of the topics, Christmas and Chronic. How could I come up with that? But I appreciate you guys. We got a jam-packed episodes coming up for the next 2. And then we're going to sail off in the sunset to 2023. So we'll see. You guys have a great weekend. This is the last weekend, I think, before Christmas, kind of. Christmas is the following weekend, but you know what I mean. Happy Born Day to Shannon and Biggity Mike. Appreciate them, even though they're gallivanting. Stay on the rise, y'all, and stick with us the rest of this episode. We got ya. Peace. Hey, so he picks up on the first ring. I just want to welcome Jeff Kelly. How you doing? Thanks for coming on the podcast.
What's up, ODB? Not too bad. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, and thanks for the Thriller cassette. We just celebrated the 40th anniversary of that, and then today we're recording this. It's the 30th anniversary of the Chronic, so I love my numbers.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man.
Hey, I wanted to get you on because this is kind of the Christmas special. We talked a little bit about the Chronic as well, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Did you want to just share with us, because my understanding was you grew up in the town or right around where the Christmas Story actually was based upon, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. So I grew up in Hammond, Indiana, which is actually the town that Gene Shepard grew up in, which is the guy that wrote In God We Trust, Others Pay Cash, which was the basis for the Christmas Story movie. So I was right between Chicago, Illinois, and Gary, Indiana, which I'm sure most of the listeners are going to know those two towns, or cities, excuse me.
Yeah, when you watch, I mean, it's a classic. I guess next year is the 40th anniversary because I think it was 83. When you watch that movie, it's got to bring back some memories. Do you remember any of the I mean, I know, like, for instance, it wasn't necessarily where they filmed it, but there's got to be some tie-ins, maybe the little store and things like that. I mean, does any of that bring back memories?
Oh yeah, for sure. So like in the scene in the movie where he's first seeing the Red Ryder BB gun in the window front, that was actually a store in town called Goldblatt's.
Okay.
In the movie, it's called Higbee's, which is an actual store in Ohio where they filmed it.
Ah, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Now, do you think like history like that, is that small town, is it kind of preserved, or what's the deal with a lot of that?
Unfortunately, that whole area has pretty much been bulldozed by now. A lot of that area has been reclaimed by a hospital that's downtown and a church that's down there. But a lot of the old town's all gone, unfortunately.
Really? Now, when you think back to one of your maybe favorite Christmas movies, I mean, what would you say if I had to put you on the spot and ask you, what would be your favorite Christmas movie? Is it that one?
Oh, yeah. Christmas Story, hands down, favorite Christmas movie. Always has been, always will be.
In the 80s, I remember growing up watching it, and I thought to myself, I was younger, and, we didn't get to buy movies and things like that. We didn't go to the movies too often, but I never knew, I guess when I was younger, here's what I'm thinking. I always thought there was like an old movie, if that makes sense, right? Because nobody, when I was younger, nobody said, oh, this movie's only 4 years old, in 1987. I always just assumed it was quote unquote an old movie. And when I go back and rewatch it now, that's the feel, that's the vibe. Of course, it takes place, I think, like in the 30s or 40s or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely has that vibe, and watching a movie like that, back in the 80s, it definitely had, a different twist on it from a lot of other movies.
Oh, yeah. Now, I was going to bring this up since Mike's, out gallivanting. The one thing that I think was interesting, here's a fun fact for everyone, in the National Lampoon Christmas Vacation, an Easter egg in there is when Aunt Bethany leads the Pledge of Allegiance. There's different generations. I don't know how many people know this, but different generations recite it differently. Aunt Bethany admits under God because that phrase wasn't added until, get this, 1954. So everyone who learned it before 54 never said under God. And I always thought that was kind of a nice little tie-in there because of the older generation. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's definitely been a change in generations from the way things are done.
Yep. Now, you've been a fan, really quick, I do want to ask you this because I know our time's limited, but you've been a fan of the mini truck scene and stuff like that in general as well, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Been around the scene since the late 90s, early 2000s. I had Static Sonoma for a while, got rid of that, and then got in the import scene for a little bit. And just then last 3 years, just before COVID hit, I got a bagged and body dually.
Damn, that's awesome, dude. When Casey, I think you had linked up with Casey, that's how at Eastbound Get Down this year, he had given me that Thriller cassette. I really appreciate that. You had hit me up and you said, yo, I got something for you. When you saw him, what do you get a chance to go out to like Camp and Drag and those type of events, or how did you link up with him?
Yeah, I met up with him at Camp and Drag, not this year, the previous year. So that's where I met up with him. He was actually going to bring me my dually from Florida, but Michael Johnson ended up bringing it to me. He was the previous owner.
Oh, yeah. He's had all kinds of cool stuff. Now, I'm trying to remember, was that the red one?
Yep, that's the red one.
Yeah, he's built some pretty crazy stuff. And, it's just crazy the amount of cool stuff that he's had. Now, let me ask you this. I know our time, like I said, I know is a little limited. I was going to ask you, I got a trivia question for you. Are you willing to play along? And I kind of hope you get it wrong because I want to take the tick marks from Mike.
All right, let's see how I do.
It's all for fun, right?
Now it's time to get serious.
So, now listen, I don't know all the ins and outs of this movie called Elf, but in the 2003 hit movie Elf, do you have any idea or any guess what the four main food groups are for elves?
I have no idea, to be honest.
No problem. And I didn't realize this till I looked it up. It's candy, candy corn, candy canes, and syrup. And I thought to myself, that's kind of Hank from Hammered Weekend Wear. That's kind of his diet. He's like all sugar.
Sure.
He's all sugar, dude. and
Oh, yeah.
and a little bit of alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
Now, my understanding is the weather's starting to change up there. What do you guys do when? I mean, mini truckers. I mean, what do you do in the winter, man?
Store them and or work on them in the garage if you got the chance.
No doubt, no doubt. Now here, so the next question I have for you is if you had to pick, we're kind of the Christmas theme here. If you had to maybe another one or two Christmas movies that you like? Are there any others that come to mind, Jeff?
I think the Santa Claus is one of my favorites.
Yes. Yep. Classic. Now, what about Christmas Vacation? To me, in '89, they come out, kind of John Hughes umbrella, and they come out with that movie. And although, I go back and watch it, and I still kind of get the same laughs over all the years, and I think that one's one that's always on people's list.
Oh, for sure. That's definitely a must watch every season.
Oh, yeah. Now, before we let you go, being a mini trucker, part of the truck scene, having this dually, getting excited about the new year. I know it's kind of winter now for everyone, especially up north, but what are you most excited about, Jeff, as you kind of get, sideways into 2023?
Probably just spring coming and the season coming back around to cruise and hit up shows again.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And listen, because you're up in that area, I do want to really plug and tell you guys, listen, we haven't even gotten into the new year, but if you are a fan of Camp and Drag, Jeff will tell you, good people behind it, Bill, and I would highly suggest that you get up there at some point. It's every July, and it's the dead of the summer, but it's up there. It's a nice, big, huge park, and I think you would certainly agree. It's one of those, it's kind of almost like a Woodstock for mini truckers.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a must-hit show. I don't think I'll ever miss it again. And I actually fell out of the scene for a while, and it was the first show back, and I was very happy that I made it the show I came back to.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, they're just good people. It's a good time. They had their challenges, and they were able to kind of, roll out a process that worked for everyone and made sure everybody gets in and has a good time for the right reasons and whatnot. I think the last question I have for you is, I know you've been a supporter, so I want to thank you for a very long time. You've been listening. Welcome. Was there any? Do you remember? How did you find us? Was it just a post on Facebook, or had you been a long time podcast listener, in terms of just podcasts in general, or did you just find us?
I remember hearing about you guys were going to come out a while ago when you guys were first coming around, and then I kind of misplaced the interest a little bit, and then came back across you after somebody said something about it, and started listening to past episodes, and actually just binged it all the way from the last episode I could find all the way to the newest ones.
That's awesome, dude. Well, we certainly appreciate it, dude. There's good people all around, including yourself, and dude, we always say this, all of us make the scene go round. There's a lot of good people, builders, enthusiasts, podcasters, whatever you want to call us, but dude, listen, man, let us be the first to wish you guys a Merry Christmas. I know it's snowing up there, and I know you got some appointments you got to get to, but thank you for taking a few minutes, man. Any last words, Jeff?
Just happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year to everyone listening and all the guys in the Airhead Nation.
Hey, thank you so much, dude, to you and your family. Be safe, dude, and don't do anything Hank Norris wouldn't do.
Not a problem, ODB. You have a good one.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care, brother.
Thanks, brother. Later.
So there you have it. Kind of a quick pull-up. I knew Jeff didn't have a lot of time. I did want to mention this for those that didn't know. He was actually in a car accident about 3 months ago. He had shared with me a car was totaled, I believe, that he was driving in. So he's kind of been going to some doctor's appointments and things like that. But I tell you what, I've always wanted to link up with him, even just for a few minutes, because he's a good dude. And then when we were chatting one day, he's like, yo, I got a little bit of a story, that kind of tie in a little bit to a Christmas story. So I said, hey, let's get you on and let's talk about it. So good stuff there. I did post, and I think, like I said earlier, as I wind this down here, again, it's kind of going to be a shorter episode. I've got some other stuff that I'm, trying to get done this week, family thing and all of that. Work's a little busy as we get ready for a couple of days off. Hopefully you guys will get a chance to spend some time with your friends and family. But I did want to just kind of reinforce that we appreciate everyone over the next week or so. I mean, I'm going to be posting some throwback stuff on the Chronic, for December 15th. I did post a couple of things, and I think you'll see some more nostalgic things. The Toys R Us ad I printed was from like November, or posted was from November of 87. And I think back and I was like, well, hold on, 87, 35 years ago, like just insane, dude. So, I just think to myself, it's crazy how fast time flies. When I posted the Chronic, so I'm kind of finishing this audio late in the week. Typically I'll try to get it done, a little quicker in the week, but it's just been a kind of a busy one. And when I posted it, I think it hits when like something from your younger days where, you're like, hey, I remember the Chronic. I remember that came out whenever I was a kid. And then you're like, wait a minute, 30 years ago? So I had some people commented like, damn, like, wow, has it really been that long? So good stuff. And again, we appreciate the engagement. When you guys comment on our YouTube or our Instagram or our Facebook posts, it really goes a long way, and we appreciate that. Now, I do want to give a huge shout out to Charm City Interior, Matt Reynolds, Big Dog Customs, Eric Folber, and Weldmore Fab, Nick. They're really good people, and I know they've been helping out our good friend of ours, Randy Frederick, who is really jamming away on a very cool project. I think when you think back to January 93, that's all I'm going to leave with you, you'll think back to some epic times, and that's going to tie in very nicely to something that's going to come out next year. So we'll leave it at that. Might be more than I should be saying, but I'm super stoked for just someone that I become, good friends with, someone I can call a brother, and someone that's always got our back here at OLP. So we're stoked for him. He knows who we are. He knows who he is, I should say. I did want to close and say I appreciate Jimmy at Jimmy's Rod and Customs. I've been on the list a while, although if you really slice and dice it, I did take Bada Bing over there like February of 2021, which is almost 2 years ago. So that kind of originally would have been when I could have slid the Lincoln in, but we had talked and we did a huge punch list on it. I talked about that in the past, so enough of that with that. But I did get a chance to bring the 64 Lincoln Continental over to Jimmy's Rod and Customs last weekend, and I've only seen one teaser photo of kind of the project coming together. I don't want to share too much. I kind of like to share things once they get done, instead of talking about, hey, I want to do this. Obviously I had shared some things, the rendering and things like that in social media, but parts-wise and actually getting the work done, I'm super, super excited about it. And, Jeff at Devious Customs, he was the guy that really kind of put together a package for me to be able to buy the air suspension, the components themselves. Jimmy's installing those. Chris at CNS Metalworks sells me the universal universal air tank and things like that. Ryan and the guys at AccuAir, they kind of pull together some things. I mean, again, it's been kind of a group effort, and things aren't cheap these days, so you got to kind of save up, you got to kind of plan things the best you can. So that's what I've been trying to do. So we definitely are excited about this kind of coming together, and I'm hoping to have it at Eastbound Get Down, which is going to be next month. We're, I guess, 1 month away, give or take, as of this weekend for EBGD. And I have been roped in about going out there. I haven't gotten a room yet. So, if any of the big homies from Low Bros or Severed or someone's got a room and they want to kind of split a deal, I'd probably be willing to do that. Not sure if I'm going over Friday or if I'm going to gallivant over Saturday yet. So more to come on that. But certainly excited about the car and hopefully getting it out to Lone Star Throwdown. I've registered the last couple years, and things just haven't worked out, but this year hopefully it will. And then I want to thank Kirk from No Regrets, Florida. He did let me borrow his trailer. I sold my trailer not too long ago. Kind of not going to be dealing with that too often anymore, hopefully. But I did sell my trailer, and Kirk let me use his, and dude, it was like flawless. We went over there on Saturday. He rode with me. That was awesome. And after Lone Star Throwdown, I am hoping to make it to Orange Beach Invasion with the car as well. So I got to kind of work all that out. I am going to slow down a little bit next year with going to the amount of shows. I mean, granted, we have a few that we're always earmarked in, including, I just named off January, February, March. Well, April, we're going to be at Southeast Mini Truckin' Nationals, dude. One of the biggest, baddest shows for mini trucks in the really in the world. And I would hope that no matter if you're in Australia, Japan, California, anywhere, come on out to Maggie Valley. Towards the latter part of April, we're going to be out there. It's going to be a damn good time. I am looking forward to getting the car up there. So, that's like 4 months in a row with shows, mostly out of state. Of course, Mike's here in the greater Daytona area in Florida. But, again, I'm going to try to balance it. We'll have some more news coming soon on what we plan for the podcast for 2023. I am ramping up some things. I'm super excited about some guests I've already locked in, so I think you guys are going to be excited about that. We're going to continue growing the YouTube side. That's really going to be a big focus in 2023, so there's a lot of just great supporters that have watched and watched and watched. We're about 400 hours. Sounds crazy, I know. But you got to get to 4,000 hours watched. We're at about 3,600 now for YouTube, so we can start monetizing. We got to monetize something because I think when people look at what we do, with the merch and all that stuff, I mean, it's fantastic. But let's be honest, if you guys have ever tried to do the merch stuff, you sell and then you buy more. It's kind of like an addiction. And you sell, you buy more, you sell, you buy more. And there's always cool stuff that we're launching. But, that is only going to go so far. So we want to continue to grow, if we can, the YouTube stuff in that space. And that's going to be important for us. The next couple episodes are going to be where we talk about the best stuff that happened in 2022, including our favorite shows, or our favorite trucks, our favorite, contributors, right? The people that really kind of got down, this year in the scene and really did a lot. So we're super excited about a lot that we're going to be talking about the next couple weeks. Shout out to everybody that continues to listen, especially if you listen all the way through. However you find us, continue to do it. We certainly appreciate it. You guys know that. Hopefully I got all the advertisers in for this week. Graphics Mafia, CNS Metalworks, the West Coast Influence, Garage Gear Clothing, AccuAir, Joey at Get Decked, Lone Star Throwdown, and of course Hammered Weekend Wear. But we can't forget Custom Car Show Productions. Again, their next events are going to be Orange Beach Invasion for March and Scraping the Coast 21st anniversary in June. I talked about that at the beginning. So come on out, support the people that support us and support the scene. Just do what you do, y'all. Wish Mike was around this week, but it was his born day. So again, happy born day to him. Happy born day to Shannon. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. We're getting closer to Christmas. Stay on the rise and drag those sleighs. We at ya. Peace.